have them all, I can get them tomorrow when we're finished, but if for some reason you don't think you're going to be here or whatever, you need them today, just let me know. Okay, awesome. All right, okay, so welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to do, as you can probably figure, since I totally redecorated we're going to do a lot of get up and move around strategies. We're going to do some content area reading, we're going to do some basic phonics skills. We're going to try and take things that you do in the classroom anyway and turn them into things that may be more visual, more kinesthetic, more interactive. And this is not because I think you should have the kids up out of their seats all the time, but you already know what to do with them when you have them. You know, so I want to give you some other ideas or options that you might have. Because we have kids who stay in their seats for an extended period of time simply drains the energy out of them. Most days you are in my spot, where sitting down for 5 minutes would be really nice. We forget sometimes that students in our classroom are in their seats for an extended period of time. And it is simply developmentally inappropriate to try and kids this age with their butts in the chair for that time. In fact, for some of them, all of their thinking is going to, I can't get up, I better not get up, I got to stay in my seat, if I get up again, so I'm going to be in trouble. That is not the kind of thinking you need to do when you're learning something. You know, so we need to find ways to move that along and give them some options, because here's what I know, they will get up. You have a choice. They can be up for a good reason, for something purposeful, something academically appropriate, or they can be up and you can keep saying, "Skew." Oh, come on, back in your seat. So this morning we're going to really try and do some of this. So everybody be prepared. You're going to be up and moving around a lot. Okay? So we're going to start with some basic word study skills. Okay? We're going to do 2 different lessons that are more elementary in terms of the phonics we're teaching. Okay? But I think many of you can adapt to do other things as well. So imagine, if you will, that we've been learning about OW words, as in snow. And so we've got that up on the board and we've practiced OW words until I just can't stand it anymore, right? So now I'm going to give you a chance to practice more on your own. So I'm going to give each of you half of a puzzle. Someone in the room will get the other half of the puzzle. They're actually color-coded. So if you have a yellow piece, do not be looking for somebody with a blue piece. It's not going to happen. All right? Hanging back here are some sentences. Okay? Once you find your partner and you've made an OW word, you and your partner are going to go find the sentence that that word fits in. Right? And then you and your partner are going to practice reading that sentence with the word in it, because I'm going to ask you to do that for all of us when everybody's found their place to go. Everybody know what you're going to do? Okay, wait till everybody has a piece, because looking for a partner right now is not going to help because they don't have one yet. Okay, everybody go ahead and find your partner and then go find your piece. I mean, your sentence. Okay? Find your partner somewhere. No, we're talking
You could take 2 parts of a math solution with a problem.
That's
You could do anything. You could cut in pieces and then put the thing that it goes with.
Do you load it?
Yeah, that's reading that's something I think for sure.
You take your time.
Oh, look at that. Everybody found their puzzle. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to go around the room. When I point to you, you and your partner are going to show us your word. Tell us what it is, and then together, not just one, together, read the sentence with the word in it, okay? So my partner and I are going to go first, because we know what to do. So, ready?
Blow.
Blow up the balloon. Go.
Crow. A crow is a bird.
Thank you.
Mow. He will mow the grass.
Thank you. You're back.
Sow the seeds in the garden.
Thank you.
Tow. Use a rope to tow a wagon.
Thank you. Right here.
Own. Do you own a bicycle?
Thank you, right here.
No. Do you know the
Well,
answer?
that was an interesting one, because you got a letter there I didn't hear. Go.
Low. Swing high and low.
Thank you, right here.
Row. You need oars to row a boat.
All right, everybody see how this works. Now, if this were my class, instead of leaving them hanging here, I would have the kids take them off the wall and kind of line up or get in a circle so that everybody can see these as they're reading them. I think you all got that part, all right? So, before you head back to your seat, think with your partner for a minute. What's something I can cut into 2 pieces and then have another piece of it on the wall? Okay, think about some practice with kids, some things you just want them to build some fluency with. What could you cut up, find a partner, and then find a spot on the wall? So talk to your partner and then we'll share some ideas. Okay, so give me some ideas. Where might this work for you? Think about,
Root words, so half the root and the base.
Sure, and then what goes on the wall?
Like a context clue sentence.
Sure, a context clue sentence, so just like this, a sentence that it could go in, all right? I have pictures here, sometimes you need it, I've got another set of these, not any pictures on them, they just have the sentences, you know? But I like the pictures because I think for some kids that really enhances the understanding. Somebody else, where would this work? Yeah.
Diagrams,
Okay, so,
just somebody have the diagram, somebody have the end of the word.
Right.
And maybe a picture to match
a
with
picture
kindergarten.
for kindergarten, start with pictures. I haven't, I couldn't find the pictures this morning, but I have 8 words, okay? So,
Oh, so
D
you can
and
offset
act, and then there's a bag on the wall. F and fact, so there's somebody who's really pudgy on the wall, you know, like just, ridiculous. Yeah,
We have a program called Foundations.
Yes.
This would work really well with Foundations. In 2nd grade, we could do double syllable words, we could do prefixes, we could do the vowel teams like this. And then after you do a whole group, you could have it as a read to sound on activity because you're working with a partner.
absolutely. Once you bother to take the time to make these and put them up on the wall and do it as whole class, think about ways to put these in centers. Okay? Laminate them so they don't get beat up. Put them all in an envelope. Have 2 kids just kind of spread them out on the floor, put them back together, and then have them do something like pick their favorite word and write a sentence for it. So you have a little accountability at the end, but it's just designed to be more. Some kids just need more practice with these things than others. So use them more than once. Other kids, they did this once, we're fine, go away, do something else. But some kids could benefit from doing it once.
Fluency too, like if it was a sentence that you cut up.
Sure.
You had the beginning part of the sentence and the ending part of the sentence, and then it had to go like within a paragraph.
Sure, it could go with a paragraph, it could go with a picture that the sentence matches, it's just anything to kind of get them to that place. Anybody else, where you might use this? What about the math? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was thinking of a word problem, like an equation.
Okay.
And you have, the equation and find your word problem.
Sure, I would say put the word problem on the wall, somebody can have the equation, somebody can have the answer. We find each other and then go find the problem that fits for it. It's so hard to get kids to actually read word problems. They feel like they're being tortured, don't they? It's like, I read in English class. Why are you making me read in math class? And yet they so desperately need the practice. So, yeah. All right, so we were talking about a couple of other math.
Yeah, we were talking about like have a fraction and a decimal, and find your partner, and then write the word format of the number on the wall.
Okay? Anything else? I think this can also work for various kinds of social studies and science content, particularly with key vocabulary words. So I've got the word, my partner has the definition. On the wall is a sentence that would fit in, or a question that word would answer, or, you know, like think about the kinds of questions you even ask kids on tests, you know, or that you want to see those words in their writing, and give them that piece on the wall and then help them find somebody. There's something about being cut up like a puzzle that really lowers the threat level for kids who struggle with this, because I don't have to know everything to find my partner. And then once I find the partner, I've got somebody to help me figure out where we belong. Okay, so, and plus it's fun, you know, like it's different colors, you get up, you get to find somebody. Now I will tell you that I cannot manipulate an entire class, but I can deal enough for like 2 or 3 pairs of kids off the bottom of the deck to make sure they get together. All right? I'm not good enough to do the whole bunch, but if there are certain kids I want to do this one together, I just stick those on the bottom and somehow miraculously they end up with those. So you can kind of target certain kids for certain things if that's what you want to do, okay? So any other questions about this? Okay, I just call this puzzle match because it's puzzle and match something on the wall. So I'm going to put you all to work. Here's what I want you to do. Peel yours off the wall. Take the tape off the back so when we pile them all up in the front, they don't all stick together in my bag. And then just make a little stack up on the table in the front that has everything together. I'll figure out where they belong. Okay?
About this before we move on. Alright, so we're going to do, actually we're going to do two examples of content area readings. We're going to do one from a 6th grade class and we're going to do one from a, I think you get in the first beginning of 2nd class. So you're going to see some content reading in 2 different ways. We're doing a lot more nonfiction reading with kids across the curriculum, not just in social studies and science, but a lot of different places. And some kids really need some support for the reading. So the first one we're going to do is a 6th grader. We're going to read about the biomes. And to do that, we need to be on slightly different teams. So I'm going to give you a number and get you a team. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, everybody got a number? Okay, you're going to be with your new team for a little bit, so bring your stuff. You're going to definitely need something to write with, but whatever else brings bring them along. Okay, so here's where we're going to go. 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. Okay, here we go. 3. Okay, so here we go. We are going to learn about the biomes. And in a classroom where we differentiate instruction, whole class, teacher-led direct instruction does not go away, okay? There are times for me to just tell you stuff, all right? Because that's the most efficient and effective way to get started. And so everybody needs one of these sheets of paper. And if this were my class, you would have both of them, but we're going to take a little paper today because there are 2 different things on your table, all right? There's the front sheet and there's the second sheet, but I just gave each of you one because I'm trying to save a little landfill, all right? So, the first thing we do as a whole class is we answer the 2 questions at the top of the first sheet. And I just tell you the answers. So we just talk about biomes. And we talk about how biomes are created. And we talk about what you find. All right, we do that as a whole class. And I just tell you things, and on your sheet, you just write down the answers. All right? But then we're going to go read about the biomes. And before we do that, we're going to need a little vocabulary. Because the truth is, this is really challenging reading. And so we have a chance to learn a little biomes vocabulary. Right? And so I just go over these with you. Here are some words you're going to see when you read about the biomes. And we just take some time. So this might be the first introductory lesson to this topic. And once we've done that, because you don't need to do that because you can all read. Once we've done that, we're going to go out and read about the biomes. One person on your team is going to read about tundra and tidal. So somebody's got a sheet that says tundra and tidal at the top. Somebody on your team is going to read about temperate deciduous forest and savanna. Yes? Somebody on your team is going to read about, here I can't remember, desert and tropical rainforest, and somebody's going to read about marine and freshwater. So we're going to divide them into pairs. So don't make me figure this out for you. Decide on your team who's going to read each of those 4 pairs. So you're each going to need one. Decide who's going to do it. Deciduous forest, okay? Do it all to each other. Okay? So, who is going to read about tundra and tidal? Please raise your hand. Okay, you see her behind you? She's going to be your buddy.
back of you. That gentleman's going to be your partner. Don't make me sorry. Okay, who's going to be about temperate deciduous forest and savanna? Okay, the two of you, turn around. You two are partners. Back here, who's going to, okay? You're going to do that, so the two of you are going to be partners. Here's where I manipulate the teams a little bit, so somebody who struggled with this reading on the wall gets a partner who's a little better reader. All right? So it just looks kind of random here. Believe me, I spent a lot of time figuring out who your partner is going to be. Who's going to read about desert and tropical rainforests?
Oh, me.
Okay, so behind you is your partner, and right here, okay? Yes, and who's going to read about marine and fresh waters? Okay, so right there, and see behind you. All right, now, you're going to notice when you get up that there are two sheets for each of these. So there are two different pictures around the room about the tundra. You can't find all the information on one of them. You're going to have to visit both. There are going to be two for taiga, two for each of the topics. And hanging next to them, see the little colored cards? Are the vocabulary words that were up here. So if you forget the vocabulary that we did together, it's hanging around the room as a reminder. So don't come and tell me you don't know what a herbivore is, that you forgot after I told you. It's up there on the wall. Yes or no? Everybody okay? Now, if you look down the center of your paper, here's the information you want to find out about your biomes. And you've got boxes to write it in. Everybody understand what you're going to do? Anybody have a question before I have you remember who your partner is and go do this? All right, they're scattered around in not any particular order. Next your partner and you'll read. Now, marine is divided a little differently than the other biomes because biomes on land are just spread out. In marine, it's how deep is the water, okay? And so there are 3 different marine biomes, and you're going to find each of them. The first one is called Littoral Intertidal. When you go put your feet in the ocean, that's it. It's the water that washes right up against the shore. Then there's what they call neritic. That's a little deeper. If my husband goes out fishing in a boat and he catches bluefish or striped bass, that's in the neritic area. It's a little deeper. And then there's the deep, deep part, which is called pelagic. That's where all the weird fish live, where it's very dark and kind of creepy. So you're going to find one for each of those hanging around the room, and then you'll find one for fresh water. So there'll still be 4 for you, but they're divided a little differently. Okay? So go. You have a good job to do.
So you don't have to order them as much, maybe. All right, now. Plants and animals, grasses, shrubs. Nothing that we need.
It's just rivers, lakes, and marshes.
Wait a minute.
The vocabulary presentation, and I just printed it out.
And this
and
is
put it
the,
on
it
the
was
card.
funny the way Lou just got to the sentences.
There it is. You know, and that really took me a while to do, but I've been using this lesson for years. You know,
Yeah,
like there's
right.
some things that are worth investing that time because it's not something that's going to go away. We're going to study the biomes for eternity. So there you go.
Time is so important.
Now we have.
Move on with some challenging reading, so you can see how this works with the kids. Okay? Did it help you to have the vocabulary words back up on the wall? Okay, so sometimes, and I know you know all these words, but this way, they're not just up here, which is far distant for kids, and some of them pay attention to this stuff and some of them don't, but it's right there. So when some kid says to me, I don't remember what herbivore means, I can say, don't ask me. It's right there on the wall. You know, that my goal is to make them more independent, not less. Okay, so by having the tools right there, I can really hold them accountable for using those. Okay. Any one of these topics, like tundra or taiga or desert, could have been one long page. But rather than doing that, I broke it into a couple of smaller ones. I think sometimes kids are intimidated by the length. Not even the difficulty level of the reading, but just by how long it is, okay? And so I broke each one into 2 chunks. You might choose to do even smaller ones. That's really up to you, depending what you know about the kids and how challenging the reading is for them. I have 0 artistic talent. I know how to insert picture. You know, so just pick one, just Google it, and miracles happen and put a picture on the paper. But that helps the kids too, because now they have some visual to associate with the actual words that are there. So if something doesn't make a lot of sense, they can see it. And now, we talked yesterday about kids who say, I see. We got a lot of those, okay? We need to honor that, give them that opportunity. I'll tell you, in all honesty, this took me a while to do. But I did it about 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm never doing it again, all right? You do not have time in a single school year to do this for everything. But maybe you could do one this learning period. And maybe somebody else in your building teaches the same topic you do. So you share, and then they do one. Okay? And so by the end of the year, you've collected 4 for social studies or science or for some other nonfiction reading. And you've got it. And now you tuck it away and you just use it again and again. This is not useful for topics that are going to be gone tomorrow. This is good for stuff that you can invest the time, because you know we're teaching Biomes every year. Okay? There are some things that just don't go away. And so those are really the places where putting the time in to gather these resources. Okay? Before we leave today, please remind me, I will show you the website that one of my colleagues and I have created that goes with the book that we wrote, where we have posted a lot of units of study, but we're also posting things that teachers give me. All right? So when I say teachers, they say, oh, I tried that, Margaret. I said, oh, can I have that? I have absolutely no shame about that. Like, oh, just give me this. So we are posting things, and I have boxes more that when I finally get retired, I can clean out the closet in my office. We're going to try and post on the website. So there will be examples of things. So that if in the course of the year you do something and you really like how it worked with the kids, if you're willing to send it to me, then we can post some of those, because this is way too much work for every teacher to reinvent in every school district in the state of New Jersey. That's just flat out silly. You know, that there's a lot of smarts here in terms of doing things. We need to be willing to spread that around. So I will give you, we'll pull that up before we go today and take a look at that, okay? Here's what happens now. At this point, oh, and this is, by the way, it's called a gathering grid, all right? It's a really great piece of paper for the kids to use as a note taker, even if you're not doing read the walls, even if you're just reading out of the textbook and taking notes, okay? And there is a reason why the criteria is down the center. Sometimes you see it with it over here on the left-hand side, and we know kids who don't scan well, by the time they get to the last column over here, Lord knows what box they're writing in, all right? So by putting it down the middle, it's just visually closer for kids. And some of you discovered you can even fold your paper, so you just see a PC, which is see a piece of it, which makes it even easier for you to use. And there's a box for everything. And I always add a box at the bottom that says something like other interesting stuff or good ideas. Just something that if somebody finds something and they don't know what box to put in, they have a place for it to go. If you don't write things in that box, that's okay, but I give you an extra space so you can find something you like. Now, if you don't have this big paper, you can do it on single sheets, but I do like something this big. I think that really, it just looks well organized. It's easier for the kids to manage. You can hole punch it and fold it and stick it in a notebook, you know, that you can make it work. Okay? So at this point, each of you would have both sheets. I usually print them back to back, but the last time I did this, my printer hated me, so that I couldn't make it print back to back without eating paper. So I ended up with 2 sheets. But at this point, each of you would have an opportunity to share with your team what you learned about your particular biomes. Here's the warning label. If you're not careful, kids don't actually listen to one another. They just pass the sheets around and copy stuff on their paper. All right? That's not what I want. So I may make everybody put their pencil down and just give them X amount of time to talk to each other. So the person who had Untitled, you have 2 minutes to tell your team the most interesting things you learned. so we can go around the group and everybody have a chance to tell, then I let you all pick up your pencils and copy off each other, all right? So it's, because that's what I see in classrooms. I just see kids mindlessly writing stuff on their paper that somehow waters down the value of what I just had them do, okay? So I generally enforce the conversation, okay? But each of you ends up with a graphic organizer that's filled in. We might, as a whole class, then put one up and go over things, to make sure everybody's, I'm trying like crazy to check in with every team and making sure we've got all the best information on everybody's organizer. My feet are only so fast, so at some point we might come back as a team and kind of go over what people put in those boxes. In fact, I had a teacher do something interesting with this very topic. There's a big bulletin board in her class, and she literally reproduced this up on the bulletin board. And she had kids create index cards that had, like, oh, what you wrote for Tundra is really good. Write that on a card. And so we literally had cards to go with the boxes. Can you picture that? Right? So that they recreated this as a big one for everybody to see. And then she would take all the cards down off the wall. She would shuffle them up. And she would have the kids figure out where they go. Yes, can you picture what I just told you? So it's this big. Each box is represented by an index card. Every day or so, I just take them down as a quick review while we're working our way through other parts of this unit. The kids have to figure out where they belong. It's just a quick practice of, oh, that's the Tundra. Oh, that's about temperate deciduous forest. So it gives them that. Yes, everybody got that? Okay. So take a minute and think about topics that you teach that might lend itself to either doing read the walls and or using this kind of graphic organizer. Those two things go together here, but they don't necessarily in the world. You could do one or the other. So get some ideas down, and then we'll go back and share. Okay, so anybody have a thought in terms of how this might work for you? Either read the walls, or this particular graphic organizer, or both. Where would it fit? Yeah.
For a novel.
Sure. Absolutely. You could even do, although with the Holocaust you have to be careful because some of the pictures are so unpleasant. But you could absolutely do something like this with pictures and information underneath. It might not fit this particular graphic, you might need a different one, but yes, you could certainly do that. The back, if you're reading Bud Not Buddy that takes place in the 1930s, if you're reading the K, that takes place, that's the Caribbean area, right? Just about the geography and what it looks like, and that it works really well for doing that, okay? Somebody else, where might this fit? Okay. Okay, so keywords, no, I think it's just a matter of figuring out what notes you want to take. I actually had a teacher, I'm trying to remember which one. Okay, so they were looking at different genres, so she actually went to the media center and copied the covers of books and hung them around the room. And then she gave the kids the different genres, and they had to try and figure out, just based on the title and what the cover looked like, which genre that would be. And then they talked about it, in terms of this would be fiction, this would be nonfiction, this would be biography, this would be, just trying to get them to think about books and what you can learn from just a title or a visual on the front. I think she copied the front and the back both, but anything like that that you can break up into little pieces, yeah. Okay? And we're talking about, I think this particular graphic organizer works really well for those of you who teach geometry. So you put circles, squares, rectangles, however many shapes you're talking about, then down the center goes how many sides, how many angles, how do you figure out the area, how do you figure out the perimeter, any of that information you want them to have.
I was also thinking for, again, it's kindergarten.
Right.
But we sometimes, I'll do like the gingerbread books.
Sure.
2 different versions.
Yes.
And then maybe the characters, the things that they can compare between both.
In which case, we've just got 2 columns and the things down the middle, okay, for them. And they could sort keywords, they could sort pictures, they could, you know, like you could have them sort all kinds of things that would fit in those boxes. And then again, for you, a really big one where everybody gets to come up and bring their card and put it in the right place. And yeah, that would be fun to do. Okay? Anybody else? So that's one read the walls, okay? To go with that, I gave you 2 follow-up activities. I gave you another sample of the perfect 10 and another sample of tic-tac-toe or bingo. So find the 2 things that say Biomes at the top. You can left them someplace, there are plenty more sitting out on the table. No, you're staying here because we're going to do another read the walls, and you're in a good team, so we'll keep you there. So there's another sample of a perfect 10, and there's another sample. This one says bingo instead of tic-tac-toe, same thing. All right, but just take a peek. If you look at the tic-tac-toe, you will see that it follows the same pattern as the one we did yesterday. And the perfect 10, I just had a book that had really interesting questions about biomes, so I just rank ordered them for myself. Which ones did I think were the most challenging? Which ones did I think were the most basic? And I just gave them things I think were good. Right? So think about those as other samples of those 2 things. Okay? Everybody see those? How many of you go back over those? You understand how those work? I just want you to have other samples of them. All right? So I'm going to do a second read the walls. I'm going to do one using some more basic readings. I want you to see how this works at different levels. All right? So you should have picked up a sheet this morning that says the bear hunt at the top. So everybody needs your sheet that says the bear hunt. Okay? Hanging over here, I use every bit of space in this room. And then we're going to be down the hall. All right? Are pictures of bears. There are 4 kinds of bears. There are brown bears. There are black bears, there are polar bears, there are grizzly bears. One person on each team will choose one of those bears. So one of you is going to write where it says my bear, brown bear. One of you is going to write black bear. One of you is going to write polar bear. One of you is going to write grizzly bear. Do not make me come over and mediate a fight over who gets which bear. Just figure that out.
Grizzly bear.
Brown, black, polar, and grizzly. Black. Now, in our anthology for reading, we are going to read some stories that have bears in them. But instead of just diving into the fiction, we're going to learn a little bit about bears first. We're going to build some background knowledge for kids. So, you will notice there are 4 boxes on your sheet. That's because there are 4 pictures of brown bears hanging around here. There are 4 of black bears, there are 4 of polar bears, there are 4 of grizzly bears. So you're going to visit all 4 pictures, and you're going to find something interesting at each one that you want to share with your team. Okay? So, everybody who's going to do grizzly bear, please raise your hand. Okay, so turn around, this is your partner. Grizzly bear over here. That's your partner. Okay? Who's doing black bear? Okay, so this is your partner. That's your partner. Yes? Okay. Who's doing polar bear? Okay, so your partner is right here. Your partner is over there. And which one did I miss?
Brown bear.
Brown bear. Thank you. Who's doing brown bear? So your partner is right there. Your partner is right there. Okay? Everybody know who your partner is? We're going to have to visit all 4 pictures to collect 4 interesting facts.
They live in the Arctic where it is cold.
6 feet tall. Plants, berries,
Yeah, 2.
and big bugs. That was backed up, mostly what they eat.
So what you do? I want each of you to choose one really interesting thing you learned about your bear and share it with your team. Go. Okay, so, yes, everybody have a chance to share? Yes. Okay. Everybody back? So this reading is exactly like the reading that we did in the back, only at a much more primary level. And I wanted you to see that because I wanted you to see that this can work across the board. It's really about what content are we teaching, how do I need to break it up. In this case, I use the same picture every single time. So if I pick out a picture about a polar bear, that was on every one. When you've got younger kids, it really helps them that there's some consistency in what they're looking for, okay? I broke this down into 4 pieces. I could have made 2 pieces, but I thought, gee, that's a lot of reading, so we'll just break it down even smaller. And I couldn't find it today, but I have a variation of this hunt sheet that has the actual sentences typed in the boxes with just blanks for the kids to fill in with key information. So you can really differentiate this if you need to. Again, it depends on your group, by tinkering with how the sheet looks rather than with what's on the wall. You can modify this for kids for whom any amount of writing might be a challenge. You could even highlight on the sheet the keywords that kids would need to copy into their boxes. So you can play with this a couple of ways to make it more manageable. This one, I believe, came from an end of first grade classroom, all right? And the teacher said, particularly, everybody was really excited about sharing with their teams, you know how they are when they're 6 and 7, you just can't wait to tell everybody everything. But in particular, her kids who were struggling readers really got into this because they knew something that the other kids on their team didn't know. How nice for a kid who's always on the give me, tell me, fix for me end of that whole discussion to be the person that other people depend on. Be the person that knows something. Oh, these kind of bears live in the desert. Nobody knew that, so I have that to share with my team, okay? For both of these reading exercises, I would make sure you ended up with mixed ability partners. I would not, unless I had the time to work specifically with a pair of kids, put a pair of struggling readers together. I would mix them up a little bit. However, I often think that when I say mixed ability pairs, I don't want you to think I mean the most able kid in the class with the kid who struggles the most. Because sometimes this most able kid doesn't have any patience with the kid who struggles. Saying, I don't know why you don't know anything is not a good response to your partner. But sometimes this most able kid is exactly the opposite. They're so good to this kid who struggles that it's almost like, okay, sweetie, give me your pencil and I'll fill in the paper for you. That does not do this struggling learner any good to have somebody else literally enabling them not to do the work. So if I say mixed ability, I more likely mean this rather than this. Now, there are clearly times when this works. And it's okay once in a while for a kid who's really able to become the teacher in sharing with another kid, but they're entitled to their own level of challenge. And so if I find myself doing that too often, I need to rethink that because this kid they're not the teacher. So they need, if I find I'm keeping them occupied by having them do that all the time, I need to find them another more challenging thing to be doing. I don't want to shortchange them. On occasion, it's fine. You've got some kids who really learn when they're the teacher. Okay? But you just have to use a little caution there. Okay? So mixed ability, more like this. Okay? Everybody good with read the walls? Okay. So I want to share with our kindergarten friends a couple samples of what this looks like in kindergarten. They've been very patient with us because often what we do doesn't look much like kindergarten. All right? And so what we did was we took some poems that we read with the kids and turned them in to read the walls. So this is a poem we've read aloud in class several times. And so now we put it up so that kids can build some fluency by going along. So books like Chicka Chicka Boom Boom and anything that has a rhyme and a rhythm to it, those kinds of things can make great read the walls for them. And it's a way for kids to build fluency. There's also one about spilled milk. Everybody in the book Spilled Milk, where it's all the clouds, you know, so sometimes it looks like a rabbit, but it wasn't a rabbit. Take a copy of a picture book and just cut it up and make copies of it and hang it up, because I think fluency is a really big deal with little ones, and so things that they can read again and again and again is really helpful to them. The problem is, I don't care how old you are, you don't want to read it again and again and again. You know, like once you've done it a couple of times, you really get tired of this, but hanging it on the wall really makes it more fun and makes it more doable. So it's a way to do that. And again, anything with rhythm or rhyme or really strong visuals in it, I think really works for, does that make sense for those of you who teach the little ones, all right? So these are here, if you want to take a better look at them later, I will leave them out. In fact, the poem even comes with gizmos. You know, so you can touch, you can see, you can taste. Anything you can get your hands on, tastes really best. All right? So I think that's the way to do that. All right, so read the walls. Everybody okay with the idea of read the walls? Okay, so we're going to do one more phonics one, because I want you to see another way. We did the first one where you had the puzzle and you had to find the sentence. Okay? We're going to do another one, and this time we're going to do beginning legs. All right? So imagine, if you will, that we have been doing these words. ST, SC, SW, TR. All right? And we've been practicing those words. And now we're going to have a phonics scavenger hunt. Cards for which are hanging over on the wall. Now here's what I've discovered. Most of the phonics workbooks with kids that come with pictures for things were done in the 1950s. And so there are pictures that kids don't know what they are. So you really have to go over the pictures first. So what's a scout? What's a scooter? You know, what's just so we make sure we're not sending them out the pictures that, yeah, you know, like really. So all these pictures that are hanging up here, please imagine that we spend some time going over what the pictures represented. Otherwise, because there's a lot of things out there that are just unfamiliar anymore. So I'm going to give each of you a hunt sheet. You will each have a different one. Don't be peeking at everybody else's hunt sheet. Just take your own, and life will be good. This one you're going to do by yourself. That's okay, you're going to be fine. Don't anybody get in that. And you are going to go visit, there are 14 cards hanging over there on those two sets of bookshelves. Each one of the cards represents a word that can start with ST, SC, SW, or TR. You're going to put one word in each box. Everybody understand what you're going to do? Take your pencil and your paper and go.
That's not fair.
I want you to look at all the different versions at the table, because there are 3 different ways, 3 different levels of this sheet. Yesterday when we did money, I tiered what was on the wall. Today, everybody has the same pictures. What I gave you was different levels of support on your paper. All right, so share with each other, see what the options are here. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. There are 3 different levels here. The first level, all you had to do was fill in the objective of the lesson was to practice the blends. So a kid who did the most basic sheet was still meeting the objective of the lesson. That's a really important thing to keep in mind. Sometimes I'm as guilty of this as anybody else, sometimes more so. Sometimes in order to make something doable for a kid who struggles, we change the objective. We don't hold them accountable for the actual learning that's supposed to go on in the room. When I do that, I need to acknowledge that I've done that I've not asked the same thing of that kid, and sometimes that's appropriate, but whenever I can, I want to maintain the same objective for the whole group, because otherwise these kids who struggle aren't moving forward with the rest of the curriculum. So in this case, the most basic sheet met the objective of the lesson. The second one, and I left you a couple of extra blanks, I don't know what I was thinking when I typed this one. In the second one, not only did you have to fill in the blend, but you had to come up with a couple of other letters. So for a word like scooter that I thought you might not have seen how to end, I gave you the rest of the word. But for a word like swim or sweep, I asked you also to come up with the ending consonant. That's just a slightly higher level of challenge. You meet the objective, but I gave you a little nudge. And then there was the one that just had blanks in it. That's for the kids who, honest to goodness, didn't need the phonics lesson in the first place. Right? They can read this, so I challenge them to not just be able to read the words, but to be able to come up with the spelling of the words beyond just now. In some classrooms, just having everybody do the first one would be perfect. Everybody needs that. But sometimes I've got kids for that is a waste of their intellectual time. And so I need to find a way to stretch that a little bit. Yes or no? Does that make sense to you? And so sometimes, if we're doing a practice scavenger hunt, we tier what's on the wall. The money cards were different colors, we were working at different levels. Sometimes what's on the wall is the same for everybody. I tinker with what's on your sheet to change the level of challenge. Right? So think about that a little bit, because I think it's an important idea to keep in mind when you do these things. I can't tell you when one is better than the other. I think that's really something you have to decide. So, take a couple of notes, think about the other idea. Both of these are really practiced. You've already done the work. This is to make it stick. Okay? So, think about that a little bit. Okay, so here's what I would like you to do. I would like you to thank your teammates, because this has been a pleasure to work together. And then scroll on back to your seat. We're going to do one more thing, and then we're going to take a couple of stretches. Back to your original seat. We have kids in our classrooms who are getting A's, but who are not getting any smarter. Because there is no challenge there. The research on building smarter kids tell us that we get smarter when we build new connections in our brains. And we build new connections when you have to work just a little harder than you can do completely on your own. And some of our students can pretty much do everything grade level on their own without breaking a sweat. And if we don't do something, those kids leave our classrooms getting really good test scores and getting really good grades, but not building the long-term student skills that they need. It is not unusual for high school teachers to tell me that many of my students with IEPs have better study skills than their non-classified classmates. And I believe that there are two reasons that they do. And unfortunately, it's not all of them, but certainly a number of them. One is learning has always been hard for them. They could never just get by. They had to do something. And believe me, they would frequently come to my office and complain about how much they had to do to get by. And I'd say, life is tough everywhere. Just doesn't. You know, I mean, it's hard, okay? Just get over it. You have to put in the work. But the other reason many of them have study skills is over the years, they have had teachers who know they cannot survive without it. And so we are relentless. Yes, you will have your assignment book, and I will sign it, and your mother will sign it, or I will call her tomorrow. You know, we don't take no for an answer because we know they can't survive. And over time, and I know some of you don't have them long enough to see that,
But over time, they begin to absorb some of those things that you enforce relentlessly as habits. And so they begin to know where their textbook is. You know, they begin to have their stuff because we just won't take no for an answer. We need to put the kids in our classrooms who are the high-end learners in positions where they need a little bit of our help. They need to face some challenges. Otherwise, they go off to college and they're calling their parents on the phone to have them help them write their term paper. You know, that sooner or later, all of us, I'll tell you mine, the neurological basis of human behavior. I'm in graduate school in Eugene, Oregon, and every week a pediatric neurologist from Portland would drive 2 hours to Eugene. He'd walk in the class, he'd drop his briefcase on the table, he'd talk for 3 hours using vocabulary that was a total mystery to me, and then he'd leave. All right? And if I hadn't had some study skills, I would not have survived in that class. It's probably the hardest class I ever taught. Every one of us has had to face that. If we didn't meet some challenges along the way, we don't know what to do. The kids are like that. And so, if we're serious about differentiating instruction, we spend so much time supporting the struggling learners. And we need to do that. I'm not trying to cut you any break and say, no, you don't need to do as much for that. But you need to find the time to raise the bar for the kids who are just doing fine. Right? And so if nothing else comes out of this, I hope that you kind of embed that message in your brain. And I know you know that, and I know you think about that, but I also know you've got so much work to do, and those kids aren't bothering you, and they're getting good grades, and their parents are happy, that it's easy not to keep them in your sights all the time. Those are the brightest and best. They're the ones who are going to be running this country, and we're too old to worry about. You know, so we really need to step up and do something. So we've done a lot more strategies this morning, and so I want to go back and take another look at differentiation and some of the basic principles of that. And this sheet comes from the Commons at work. And I'll tell you right now that everything on this paper is important, otherwise it wouldn't be. But depending on who you teach and what you teach and your own philosophy and understanding of differentiation, there will be some things on this sheet that are quite honestly more important to you personally than others. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to read it. And when you're done, I want to hear you toss it to your table mate. Which one or two on here really jump out to you and say, gee, this is really important? Okay, so these are clearly the principles that ground us in differentiation. All right? So somebody tell me, you can't be wrong here, I'm asking for your opinion. All right? Which one on here really speaks to you? It's really important to you as a teacher. Yes?
The students and teachers are collaborating.
Yeah. We have really, well, certainly since I started teaching, which I admitted yesterday is very close to 50 years ago, right? We have really changed the role that we take in the classroom. When I first became a teacher, I was supposed to be the fountain of all information. I was supposed to know everything and I was supposed to fix it. We are really turning that around to where we are certainly the planners and the organizers and, you know, the thinkers about what's going to go in the classroom, but that we're asking more of the kids, which in turn asks more of us, because we really had to change our approach to this. Do you all feel that? We're really being asked to approach this differently. And I believe that's an important part of what's going on here. Somebody else, what's really important to you? Yeah.
We really like the last one says flexibility is the fallback of the differentiating concept.
Right. That is not, can you touch your toes? I will admit to you, when I was a young teacher, I knew how to write a lesson plan. I knew how to start at the beginning and work my way through to the end, and it was really better if nobody interrupted, because that's all I knew how to do. You know, I knew how to do this. And I think the longer you're in this business, the more able you are to be really flexible. You know, the more ideas you have accrued in your head, the more you have to fall back on. So there is a gentleman named Jim Grant who wrote this little book. I'm going to give you the title because I think it speaks to this. It's called, If You're Riding a Horse and It Dies, Get Off. You've all had that experience. It felt like such a good idea in the car on the way to school. And now you are 5 minutes into this great idea, and it is literally dying on the floor in front of you. You have two choices. You can invest another 40 minutes in the dead idea, or you can quite honestly say to the kids, wait a minute, we need to do something different. And I have the great privilege of being in a lot of classrooms, and some of the best lessons I've ever seen have been of, the dead horse variety. Because a teacher responded to what they saw and observed in the classroom. If they were willing to take a risk, to change what they were doing, to just say to the kids, wait a minute, collaborate. We're all in this together. This isn't quite working today. Let's think of something else we can do. I do believe that that's one of the great skills we bring to the table as teachers. Okay? Somebody else, what was really important to you? Yeah.
One of the things that in this last year, especially I've had a hard time, is that all students participate in respectful work.
Yes.
When you have the kids that just don't work, no matter what. So I think that's important that the students have to participate in some way, and then to continue to throw ideas at them, something's going to stick, but
It's really frustrating when the best you know of everything, there is a kid or kids who just don't respond to that. And I'll be very honest with you, there's no magic here. Because sometimes the thing that worked with the other 18 kids that were hard to deal with over the years just doesn't work with this one. And you don't know which thing is it going to be that finally turns this kid around. And so we have to do exactly what you said. We just keep at it. You know, that we are just relentless in our message to kids that anything less than being a full participant in this classroom is not acceptable. And I feel, I mean, I get it, you know, like there are some kids who just make this really hard. No kid comes to school as a 5-year-old saying, I think I'll be a failure. No kid walks in the door saying, I think I'll just get an F. You know, like no kid comes and says, oh, I think I'll be the person that everybody says is not good. You know, like they don't come with that. And so it's really our responsibility to figure out what it is that's changing that 5-year-old, I can do everything kind of kid into that person. And I'm not blaming you for that. There's a lot of factors that go on in kids' lives that have nothing, that we have no control over that generate some of that. But our job is to simply, okay, so, fourth grade student that he could have been the ADHD poster boy in the elementary school where I was working, okay? He was a mess. There was something endearing about him, but on any given day, he just kind of drove the building a little wacky. You know, it just was a really hard kid to manage. And so I'm doing his reevaluation, so he's probably a fourth grader at that point. And I often ask the kids, who was the best teacher they ever had? Not because I want to know who they are, but because it tells me something about the kid. Who do they respond to? You know, what kind of personality or kind of grabs them? And so he named his second grade teacher. I'll use her name because Sylvia knows I tell the story. He said, Mrs. Bohr. And I thought, why in heaven's name did he pick Mrs. Bohr? Okay, I know Sylvia. He moved in about halfway through second grade, and he was retained in second grade. And I was a little afraid of Sylvia because she used to order me around. And she said, he's staying with me. I thought, oh Lord, she wants to keep him for another year. I would walk down the hall, and she would be going up one side of this kid and down the other. And so I said to him, Tommy, why was Mrs. Bohr your favorite teacher? And he said to me, she never gave up on me. Okay? He goes, my other teachers, they try to like me. But you know I'm bad. Which, you know, okay. And sooner or later, they just get tired. But Mrs. Bohr never gave up on me. And that just speaks volumes about what kids respond to. You know, I mean, I couldn't have been in Sylvia's class, you couldn't pay me enough money, because I'd have been terrified to get out of my seat, right? But for this kid, she was the right teacher at the right time. She was relentless. She knew he could do it. And 3 years later, he's still telling me that that was the best teacher he ever had. This job ain't easy. Okay? Anybody else? I'm not sure.
growth and individual success. I think it's just a really good concept to kind of keep in mind about the growth and those individual successes, and that they might look different for each child.
Absolutely. Okay. So one more story and then Tom can get on this. Very great. So when I worked at the high schools in Toms River, we had a lot of kids who weren't in a lot of general ed classes. You know, they took many of their academics within the special ed department. But the one class pretty much everyone went to was physical education. All right? And if there's anybody here who loves phys ed teaching, I'm telling you this. But I used to say to the kids, look, you can pass phys ed. Just put on your sneakers and don't get caught standing in the same place twice. You know, like you just have to be there and do something. All right? But that meant they went to health class together. All right? So they took 3 semesters of physical education and 1 semester of health. So my kids who were really struggling readers went to health class with kids who were taking AP Bio. All right? Talk about a mixed group of kids. And so imagine, if you will, that the health teacher gives a pre-test about the human body before they start the unit. And some kid who's taking AP Bio gets a 90. And one of my kids, who really has trouble even reading what's on the test, is having a really good day and fills in as many blanks as they can, and they get a 20. All right? At the end of the unit of study, the teacher gives the actual test. And the kid who took the AP Bio gets 100, and they get an A. And I'm not suggesting they shouldn't get an A. Look how much progress that kid made. They went from 90 to 100. Now, one of my kids who actually put in the work, you know, who got some extra help, who studied really hard, gets a 60. And look how much progress they made, and they get an F. I'm not suggesting they should get an A. They didn't do A-level work. But if you measure growth and not just actual standard, then those kids should get some feedback that says to them, look at how much you've learned. And I can't fix that. I mean, the grading system is what it is. But we need to think about that. Because here's what they'd say to me the following year when they went to health. I'm going to go every day because if I don't go, I'm getting in trouble, but I'm not doing any work. Because last year I did work, and I got an F. Why would I bother? Message received. Okay, so that's a really big deal. And we have report cards, and please, I'm in a lot of districts, and people redo their report cards all the time, and then they still look like traditional report cards, because we just can't figure out a way to not have a grade.
Well, we've changed. We're staying based here, and I have to say, like, that's, I think why this resonated so much with me is because I think we're in a really good place in celebrating and demonstrating that growth and communicating to parents a lot of times anecdotally what that growth looks like, and communicating to the kids. The kids can tell you how they're growing. They know the taxonomy on our scale.
And that's really important.
I think that's why that stood out to me personally.
It's a really hard transition to make, not only for you, but for parents who still want to know what an A looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, are they getting A's? But
That's not our language.
but it takes a long time for parents to get that language. My sister-in-law has 5 kids. They're lovely. When the oldest one was in, I think, 2nd grade, she called me when she got his report card. She goes, okay, we've got all these letters and numbers and things on his report card. I want to know which one tells me that you've got an A. You know, that it's work for us to make the transition, but it's hard for parents to hear the new language. But if that's what you guys are doing here now, that really supports this. Okay? Anybody else? Something you want to talk about? Okay, in that case, I am declaring a 10-minute stretch break. Everybody go. Take a break. Eat a cookie. I think practice is a big issue for us in terms of differentiation. So the research on practice tells us that there are 3 levels of practice that we work our way through to become really fluent in the skill. Okay? And the first level is what's called guided practice. And guided practice means I just learned something new and I'm going to practice it for the first time. And guided practice needs to take place in front of someone who knows what they're doing.
so I don't make a lot of mistakes. Because we talked yesterday about the fact that if you do something all wrong, it kind of gets stuck in your head. So guided practice, I just learned something new. I need to practice it for the first time, and I need to have some support person available to me. And most often that means the teacher. Once in a while, you have a student whose parent is capable of providing them with guided practice. Oh, you're going to practice this, check with your mom. But truthfully, guided practice needs to take place here. Okay? The second level of practice is what's called massed practice, M-A-S-S-E-D, massed practice, meaning I got it. Now I need to build speed, accuracy, both. Okay? And with massed practice, the issue is not how much you do, it's how frequently you do it. We all know that. Okay? Kids who study their spelling words on the bus on the way to school, that's not massed practice. Because if they have the quiz first period in the morning, they've forgotten to spell half of them by lunch. The kid who does better studies for 2 or 3 minutes every day in the course of the week, because they are much more likely to remember that long term. Kids are not always an easy sell with this. They don't necessarily get that far. Okay? So when I was 11 and taking piano lessons, I disliked having to practice every day. And so I would wait until the day of my piano lesson, and after I feigned various diseases, so I didn't have to go, none of which my mother ever fell for, I would practice like a crazy person. Which is the reason I am not much of a pianist at this point in my life, because I didn't do massed practice. I did just enough to get by. Some of the books and materials we have in our classrooms do not understand massed practice. They will give kids 40 examples of something and then they won't see it again for 3 weeks. That is not massed practice. I had a teacher in 6th. I'm the oldest of 3. My sisters and I all went to this little school out in the country with all the same teachers at the time, right? So I had a teacher in 6th grade whose name was Mrs. Henderson. Perfectly lovely woman. I thought she was really elderly, as I was 11. You think everybody's really elderly at 11. But she taught long division by the, please excuse me, divide until you die method. Right? We had this newsprint style paper that we folded, so there were 25 boxes on the front, which meant there were, 25 boxes on the back. And we did, for what I swear to you was an entire school year, 50 long division problems every night. Now, I am no math genius, that's not my strength, but I had a divide. And I learned all the long division. I was going to learn somewhere between problem 5 and problem 10. And after that, all I learned was to hate long division. You can tell that, because now, all these years later, I can tell you a story about how I hate long division. But what did it do to the kid in my class who was not good at long division? Because his choice or her choice was really to either do these problems all wrong or not do them at all. Neither of which got them many rounds of applause in class. And I thought maybe I was making this up, so I asked my mom, and she said, no, we were so glad when your younger sister got out of 6th grade, because your father and I were really tired of long division. All right? Mass practice means doing the right amount every day over time. It doesn't mean doing 50 today. Okay? And just because your book has 25 examples doesn't mean 25 examples are the best choice. Okay? You as the teacher need to pick and choose what amount of practice is appropriate for things. Okay, so guided practice and mass practice. The third level of practice is what's called distributed practice. Meaning, I haven't seen it in a while, but maybe I need to check back in and see if I still remember. So there was a point in my life when I took a sign language course. That's pretty much what I did, sign language, all right? I'll give you enough time, I can do the alphabet. Because there is no one in my family who signs. And so there was no distributed practice there. I did it. I had guided practice. I had mass practice. I did really well in the class. But it's been a long time. And I haven't had the opportunity to go back and practice that again. Okay? So guided practice, mass practice, distributed practice. Here's the hard part for you as the teacher. Inside of 10 minutes, in any given classroom, you may have kids at all 3 levels there. So I say, today we're going to learn, and some kid raises his or her hand and says, oh, I know how to do that. And maybe they already do. In which case, they probably don't need the guided practice or the
They might just need to check in every so often just to make sure that skill is firm. You're 10 minutes into the lesson, and some other kid is raising his or her hand saying, oh, I got it. They're done with guided practice. They could move on to math practice. They could move on to building the fluency. And now I'm 20 minutes into the lesson, and there's still somebody looking at me like a deer in the headlights who has no clue that they could go practice on their own. And so what makes it hard for us in terms of differentiation is to kind of figure out where kids are in terms of the practice and provide them with those opportunities. You know, one, what do I need to practice? Where all kids need to practice, that's not the issue. But what particular skills do I need to practice? How much of that practice do I need to do? Can I do it independently? Okay? When I talk to teachers about particularly their math programs, one of the frequent complaints I hear is that there's not enough practice built in as we cycle through various things. And so sometimes as teachers, we need to make sure to bring that distributed practice back. So maybe once a week there's a homework assignment that has 2 problems on it that come from the unit before. And maybe on a test there's a bonus question where you have to do something we did in the lab, you know, that we just keep our eyes on that. Not to provide tons of that, but just to keep checking back in with kids. I think it's the same for skills in any other content area. I think we just see it more often in math because of the skill-based and the pace that we move through the curriculum. Does that kind of make sense to all of you? Now, so now I'm going to say something to you that's going to make you unhappy. But this speaks to the issue of homework. All right? There are some assignments that we have reached the point where a kid is supposed to take this home and do it for homework that they should not do because they're just going to mess it up. They're not ready to move from guided practice to doing more independent kind of practice on their own. Now, I'm not suggesting to you that they shouldn't do homework. I'm suggesting to you need to think about what homework they should be doing. And that's really tough. If you think I have a solution to that problem, you're probably in the wrong workshop. All right? But I think just consciously thinking about that on a regular basis will help you. Every kid should be doing homework. That's not the issue. But what's the right homework for this kid? Is there a kid who's doing homework that who could do it on the bus and get them all right when they have nothing to do? Or is there a kid who really needs this homework because that's the right practice? Or is there a kid that this will just cement, I can't do it and I've done it all wrong, or I'm not doing this homework, tear up my paper and throw it in the garbage kind of homework. So it's just thinking about the levels of practice has helped me make better decisions where that's concerned. That's really the message today, okay? So I want to do a couple of more game-based strategies with you today that I think are really good for distributed practice. So that things can come back and kids can see them again, but not necessarily in a traditional workbook, textbook, paper and pencil kind of fashion. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play a game called Quiz Trade. And that was on the list the other day, and somebody asked me, I promised you we'd play today, okay? Quiz Trade is a game. Quiz Trade. So I'm going to give each of you a card. Don't be showing your card to everybody else in the room, all right? Just hang on to your card. There's a question on the front. Not to panic, the answer is on the back. This one has math questions, but the truth is, it could be any kind of question. I'll give you some other examples later we're done, all right? So in a minute, you're going to get up out of your seat, and you're going to have a chance to walk around and talk to as many different people in the room as time allows for, all right? So I'm going to model this for you, all right? I promise you I won't embarrass you. Okay, so here's the answers. All right? So, hi, I'm Lynda. Megan, can I go first? Okay. How many feet in 1 mile? That's very good. Ask me.
How many days in a year?
365, unless it's leap year. Oh, then we get one more. 366. Am I right?
You're right.
quiz, trade. So you and the cards are moving around the room. Now, if your partner gets it right, you say something complimentary. Good job. Okay? But what do you do if your partner gets it wrong? You do not make your partner stand there and guess. Just tell them the answer. You don't get to say loser or whatever they're saying. I have trouble keeping up with the latest insults, okay? We're not having that. If your partner doesn't know the answer, just tell them, okay? You trade if they get it right, you trade if they get it wrong. Doesn't matter, okay? We'll talk about why when we come back together, okay? So, everybody has a question on the front? Everybody has the answer on the back. You all know what you're going to do. You will go over the rules again after you have a chance to play. Okay.
Of course, all the answers.
Okay, so everybody else.
Oh, wait, you're supposed to trade?
How many ounces in 1 pound?
Very good, thank you. Raise your hand, you can have your partner.
30 days, 20.
Okay.
How many hours per day?
How many years is your partner?
That was my good.
How many years? So, this is one of my favorite practice games, because it's really easy set. Kids like this, okay? You don't have to torture them into practice if you turn it into this trade. There are a couple of reasons why I like this game. The first one is this. Some of the games we play in our classrooms are very public. The kid gets one wrong and everybody in the room knows it. Now, I'm not asking you to give those up, but I'm asking you to consider that there are some kids who, when you play those games, really like to hide in front because they really are afraid to be wrong in front of the rest of the class. With quiz trade, if I get one wrong, the only person who knows that I got it wrong is my partner. I do not have to display my lack of information to everybody, so it really feels less of a threat to do. The other thing that I really like is if I get one wrong, I immediately take that card and I go ask somebody else that question. So if I didn't know the answer, I get reinforced for the right answer right away. I don't just move on and ask something else. So it gives me that extra practice. Now, depending on the size of the group of kids, it is entirely possible that I'll be back with the same person again. That's fine. Sarah had a different card when she and I were partners again. But the truth is, what's the worst thing that happens? You get the same card again. It's practice. If you weren't quite sure the first time, now you have a chance to get it right. So, and the cards are, you play for an amount of time. You know, the cards are just moving around the room. If the amount of hubbub that this creates is difficult for you, or difficult for some of the kids in your class. Once in a while you have a class where you say everybody get out of your seat and somebody just gets totally lost. You know, you can do it by having the kids in a circle. So we count up 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 around the room. The ones make a circle, the twos make a circle behind the ones. The ones turn around. We quiz, trade cards, and then on the teacher I move the outside circle 2 kids to the right. You know, so I personally like the amount of noise and silliness that this engenders. But if you have kids who this just really sets them off, you can always do it in a more quiet place. With little guys, you can even have them sit on the floor and then have the outside circle get up and move and sit back down again. So you can structure it more if you need to. All right? You can put anything on these cards that has a single right answer. These are not open-ended questions. We're going to do something with open-ended questions later this morning.
This is about information. This is about skill practice. Who was the first president of the United States? George Washington. Was the capital of New Jersey? Trenton. All right? You know, things that it would be really nice for kids to just be fluent, to just know, to not have to look everything up. All right? So, here is a set from algebra teachers where they were doing factoring. All right? So you can do it with more advanced kind of math. Here is a set of cards from a science unit about environmental issues. What's a layer of track pollutant? Smog. Okay? Here is a set from beginning edition, 4 plus 1. Not only do they have the answer on the back, but they have little stickers to help them. Or tell me what number this is, 87. You know, so the answer always goes on the back so that the person who's asking the question knows the answer. All right? This makes great vocabulary practice if you're doing a unit of study. And it's the kind of thing that I would do more than once with the kids. So if you come up with X amount of cards that go with this particular unit, you might want to play every day or every other day for just a few minutes. All right, so it's good for that kind of, let's make it really stick in their heads. Once you have done this a bit, you can have kids make questions too, particularly if you have older students. So we've just done a unit of study on blank. I give every student 3 cards. I give them plenty of cards because some of the questions they come up with are not worth trading. All right? So I give everybody 3 cards. Their homework tonight is come up with 3 good questions about fill in the blank. Come in the next day, I collect the cards. I go through, take out a lot of the duplicates and some of the ones that don't make any sense, and we have a stack to play with. All right? So that the kids can do this as well. And the other thing I like about it is that you know how you do a unit of study on something in September and it's now December and you use a word or a skill from that unit and 2/3 of the class looks at you like you're speaking a foreign language, like, oh, we never saw that before. These make great distributed practice. So I have a set from this. So every 2 weeks I pull them out and we quick play. And another week we pull them out and we quick play. And again, this is not a hard sell because the kids enjoy it and you don't have to play for 45 minutes. You can play for 5 minutes once a week, keep adding more cards to the deck, and just give the kids that kind of practice. So quiz, trade. Once you know the name of the game, you know the rules. I quiz, you quiz, we trade cards. Okay? So think about things that are coming up. Now in the summer is a great time to just get yourself a stack of index cards and look at the first couple of units of study you're going to do and come up with some so you have them ready to play. So take a minute or two, jot down some ideas. Where might you use quiz trade?
Or even if you just thought of that would actually work at all grade levels would be if you were to take the vocabulary from our scales and do it that way. And we could even color code according to reading information or reading literature or social studies or math, you know. But if we do it that way, that continued exposure to the scale vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Even
because
if you
that's
think
across
about
years.
the vocabulary that kids often see on tests, you know, where those words get in the way. So if I use the word essay in class and the word in the test is write a composition, you know, like kids who just don't know specific words, they know how to do the work, but they don't know the words that we use to describe the work. So those are really good to put on things like this too, because they're just general knowledge kind of things that don't always appear in the curriculum guide that really get in kids' way. Okay? Where else do quiz straight work? Yeah, I mean, the little ones, just numbers, numerals, and the words that tell us, or the number of dots they can count to tell us. Yeah. All that, like the basic vocabulary things. Okay? Anybody else?
I was going to just give facts.
Yes.
Like anything on social studies and just how those
This is just information. And again, to be discreet, there are things kids don't need to practice because it doesn't appear all the time and you can just look it up. You want the things that, we're just talking about things that get in the way of doing other things. So for example, if the word problem has miles and feet in it, and I don't know how many feet are in a mile, I can't solve the problem, not because I can't do the arithmetic, because I'm missing some foundational information. Those are really good things to do on cards like this because it helps them do that. I have a set that we do with clocks that have the time on it, you know, so it has the digital time on one side and the clock stands with the time on the other, you know, just for some of the younger ones. Those kinds of things can be really helpful, all right? So I want to share one thing I saw in a classroom that I thought was really interesting. This was a 7th grade class, but I think for some of you who teach like 5th and 6th grade, this may be helpful. So they're playing quiz trade with vocabulary. You're going to have a vocabulary test the following day. So this was vocabulary from some language arts. Right? And in addition to their card, the kids had a list of all the vocabulary words. So if I had a card and I got the word right, I just checked it off on my list. So that when we were done playing, it was either a word that I hadn't known or a word that I hadn't seen. So now I had kind of limited the words I needed to go home and study because I checked off the ones I got correct. Is that, you can picture that. The other thing I will warn you is that, I don't know why it is, but it's like the kids have magnets for each other. And when you start to play, somehow they've all gravitated towards the center of the room, and it's gridlock. All right? And so I saw a teacher do this, which I thought was really helpful. He took 4 kids and he said, you're going to stand over here, you're going to stand over there, you're going to stand over there, you're going to stand over there. So that people had to come to you to quiz trade. So it pulled kids out of that vortex in the middle of the room that they often descended to. Okay? So just as a hint, if you find that happening, that's, you know, a way to do it. Okay? This teaches pretty good. You do have to teach them to raise their hands. Otherwise, somebody's standing there miraculously waiting for a partner to appear. So the hand raising, whether they have to introduce themselves and shake hands or not is up to you. You can do that or not. But raising your hand becomes really crucial so you keep kids engaged in the game. Okay? So quiz trade. Any other questions about that? Okay. Then we're going to do something with open-ended questions, right? And we're actually going to do a math one for this too. So although we're taking a break, I redecorated a little bit. And over here on the bookcases are hanging some green envelopes. And on each green envelope is a math question. These are questions that you can answer in more than one way. Okay, so these are not good quiz trade questions because those have a single right answer. These are questions where there might be more than one way to show your answer, more than one way to answer the question, more than one possible thing you can do. So, the 3 of you are going to work together. You 2 are going to be together. You 2, 3 of you, divide yourselves into 2 pairs here, and the 3 of you are going to be together. All right? And I'm going to give each team 3 cards because you're going to have time to do at least 3 problems. And if you do them that quickly and you want a couple more cards, just come and get more. I want you
you to have time to do at least that, okay? So here's what you do. You and your partner, or partners, read the question. You discuss what would make a good answer to this. And then you write what you think on this card. After you do that, you drop it in the envelope. You will discover that I've collected cards from other workshops. There are already a lot of cards in the envelope. So you will stick your card in the envelope as well. You do not put your name on the card. We talk about why or why not you would do that later. It can be anonymous, don't write anything foolish, I won't know it's you. So you can start anywhere, you can work in any direction, but you've got 3 cards for you and your partner, so pick 3 problems to do. Work together, all right? It should be a group decision. Everybody understand what you're going to do? You need your 3 cards and something to write with?
This would be easy enough too. I was thinking just on the difference between 2 numbers is 5. What might give it to me? What might the 2 numbers be? 10 and 5.
I need that and the confidence.
Every team, take one of the envelopes down off the wall and bring it back to your table. So somebody grab this. Okay, so the first thing we do is we go work on the problems. The second thing, and this was a real mixed bag here. Usually we do them about a single topic, but I want you to see some variety. So I picked some from different levels and different topics just so you can get a sense of that. So what we do is we come back to our seats now and we take the cards out of the envelope and we look and see, did everybody come up with the same answer? Well, maybe not, because some of these have many possibilities. Did everybody show it the same way? Well, maybe not, because some people might have drawn, some people might just use numbers, some people might use a chart, so that you can see, we give a lot of lip service to more than one way to solve a problem, and then we don't always have to do more than one way to solve a problem. So just take a look through the envelope and see what might be in there. Yes, okay, so, you hang on to this, it's yours. But I took all of these from here, all right? This has different levels of problems. So you can do length and perimeter from K to 2, you can do length and perimeter from 3 to 4, you can do length and perimeter from 5 to 6, so there are different levels of questions in this book. So it's a good resource. There you go. Hang on. This is called carousel envelopes. Carousel, we're walking around. Envelopes, you're dropping the book answer in the envelope. I show you some other examples of this, okay? So here's a set. I did this in a first grade class where we just wanted the kids to write. That's all right? And so write about your family, write about a happy day, write about kindergarten, write about your favorite season, write about a good friend, any topic. And so the hard thing with the kindergartners is they can't read each other's handwriting. I mean, the first graders. But it was a good exercise in just getting the kids to write, just getting them to write about something. Hold up the ones from Make Way for Ducklings. So there's a whole set of questions from Make Way for Ducklings. So if you read a book to the whole class, there are questions to go with that. A teacher in second grade actually used these with our class. Said so then everybody took the envelopes down off the wall, they got to look through it, all the different ways that people answered the questions, and then everybody had to answer a question on their own. And what she said to me, and I believed her, best writing she ever got from this group of students, because they had talked about the ideas so much before they had to write on their own. So that they had not only the things they thought of, but all the things that other kids in the class thought of. Didn't improve their spelling one iota, okay? We're not talking about that. We're talking about giving them some ideas that they can use in writing. There's also a set here from the story of Cinderella, okay? So questions like, how should Cinderella explain her failure to follow the directions to the fairy godmother? Right from Cinderella's point of view and be convincing. Okay? What two things does the prince do that allow us to make inferences about his personality? Explain your inferences. So these are really high-level questions about a kid's fairy tale. Should Cinderella invite her stepsisters to the weddings? Explain your decision using details from the story and personal experiences. Fairy tales usually end happily ever after. It's 1 year later. What are Cinderella and the prince doing now? Explain your answer using details from the story. So you can take even something simple, not difficult to read, but provide really interesting, kind of challenging questions for the kids to work on. And then again, after they have an opportunity to look and see and share, that everybody writes on their own. Everybody has a chance to do their own writing that holds them accountable, right? There is a reason I don't have you put your names on these. When you open the envelope and you look at all the answers, I don't want anybody to say, oh, look, there's Lynda's card, that's a stupid answer. I want kids to have the opportunity to try, to take a risk, to do something a little different. I can't promise you that having them be anonymous doesn't mean that someone will write something inappropriate and drop it down. If I see giggling going on over here, I just walk by and take the card. I don't even need to pay any attention to it. I know what the giggling means, okay? But most of the kids are fine with this. Rarely have any issues with that. This also works really well in social studies and science for more open-ended questions. If you were going to add an 11th Amendment to the Bill of Rights, what would it be? Okay? Is it appropriate for drug companies to test on animals? What do you think about that? Like open-ended science and social studies kinds of questions at any level, okay? Younger kids can draw and write single words and drop them in the envelopes. Now, you can really use this across the board. So take a minute, think about the idea of carousel envelopes. This is a favorite of mine. This doesn't look like test prep, but here's the truth. This is test prep. Because if you think, yes, absolutely. If you think of the kinds of questions that kids are asked, the open-ended math or the open-ended constructed, whatever we're calling this year, responses on the test, this is a way to practice these in a format that is not those god-awful test prep books. All right? So take a little time, get some ideas down. Where would carousel envelopes work for you? What topics, what kinds of questions? Think about that one.
or really high-level kinds of questions, I will often answer all the questions and put a really good answer in every envelope. If you have a group of kids in particular that will not come up with an answer that rises to the level that you're looking for, I know when they take an envelope down on the wall, there's going to be at least one group that are living there. That's I do. All right? So if there are certain rules, I want you to show all your work. I want you to label the answer. I want you to write an introductory sentence. I want you to, whatever the rules are, I can do an answer. I don't put my name on it. Sooner or later, they figure out his handwriting. At least there's like one really good one in there, okay? For those of you who teach older kids, if there are rubrics that go with the state assessment for how to do a short constructive response, when the kids take the answers out of the envelope, you can have the rubric on the table. And they can look for one that will get them those points. Like they can score some of them. So we can go back and use this as a tool. The kids who struggle will not suddenly start getting 4s instead of 1s, but if they get a 2 instead of a 1, we're heading in the right direction. And seeing what makes a good response and going back and evaluating it themselves will often help them have a better idea of what that looks like than just me modeling for the 45th time what makes a good response. Like it's that practice, okay? So, yes or no? Right? If you teach more than one section of something, collect the answers from the kids so you have a lot of possibilities in the envelopes. If you do it next year, save some really good ones and put them back in the envelope for the following year. And keep them so that you have, it's not a matter of having lots of examples, it's a matter of having different examples and good examples in there. It's also good to leave some pitiful examples in there. Because if you're having the kids evaluate them, you need some that aren't great either, all right? And what I often do when the kids find one that doesn't do well, so let's say we're using a 4-point rubric and we find some in there that only get a 1. The question then becomes, how can this get more points? And oftentimes, the difference between a 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 3 is not tearing it up and starting over again. It's adding one detail. It's changing one number. It's circling something. It's labeling something. So the kids need to see that they don't always have to do everything to do better. Sometimes kids get discouraged and say, I can't possibly do this. But we can give them a chance to see that it doesn't take a lot of work to do a little better. Is that? So, on the subject of rubrics, I'll tell you something that I saw a teacher do that I thought was really interesting. Her class was doing a lot of extended writing with a rubric that had, like 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, something, right? So, when the kids and the teacher sat down and evaluated their first piece of writing, so let's imagine the score on the first piece was a 2. All right, we've got this big rubric and the score on the first piece is a 2. She took the rubric and she cut the 2 and the 3 column. And she got rid of everything but that. So now, the student who got a 2 could look for 2 things in the 3 column that became their goals for the next piece of writing. Because some of those kids, looking at what makes a 6 is so intimidating that they just quit. I can't possibly write something that would get a 6. But if I got a 2, I could write something that would get a 3. Yes, can you see? Okay. Once they get the 3, then we cut the columns with 3. In other words, we get rid of some of the extraneous stuff, and we just focus on what's the next step. How can we go from here to here? So even on the math one, it doesn't always have as many criteria. If kids are scoring 1, just turn up a 1 and a 2. Is that okay? That's again really good differentiated test prep. It's hard to use those words in the same sentence, all right? But I do believe that that's true. And I believe some kids are not right now capable of producing something that gets the highest score, but they are absolutely capable of moving across that rubric to get a better score. That's back to the maximum growth and individual success rates, okay? So, some of the teachers I've been doing a lot of work with rubrics and how we make rubrics more usable
to kids, because some of them are just, you may be able to use them, but they don't mean a lot to you. They're just kind of overwhelming. All right? So again, I'll shut up for a minute, take another second, and think about that as a possibility, and just jot down an idea or two for yourself. Okay, so, any other questions about what we did with carousel envelopes? All right. So we've done some nonfiction reading. I want to do a little fiction reading with you, okay? So we really haven't tapped into the fiction yet as a reading strategy. So I want to give you an opportunity to do some fiction readings. So I asked you to join this team in the back so that we're in teams of 2s or 3s. 4s is kind of a lot to do this, all right? Thank you for doing that. Okay, so the hardest part of this one is you're going to need to clear yourself some space, all right? And you're going to need some stuff, all right? So here's what you're going to need. Every table is going to need one big sheet of newsprint, a couple pairs of scissors, some glue sticks, at least one magic marker, you can have more than one if you like, and at least one highlighter. Okay? So somebody from your team is going to need to get that. I would say these 2 pairs of scissors, a couple of glue sticks, a magic marker, and a highlighter. So, decide who's in charge, gets in some luck. Okay, so once you have your newsprint, you're going to need to make it look like this. You're going to divide it into 4 columns, and you're going to label them. And if the fabric newsprint rolls up and making you unhappy, I will be using the table license. Okay? So column 1, you're going to label Mr. Bundy. Column 2, you're going to label Mo and Ivy. Column 3, you're going to label Ms. Moore. She happens to be the vice principal. And column 4, you're going to put the top Roger, smart student, and at the bottom, Alice, who is the kindergarten child. So please make your newsprint look like this. Mr. Bundy. Mr. Bundy is the principal. Yes. Mo and Ivy. You'll find out who they are later. Ms. Moore is the vice principal. Roger, who is the smart student, and Alice, who is the kindergarten child. So Mr. Bundy, Mo and Ivy, Ms. Moore, Roger, who's the smart student, and Alice, who's the kindergarten child. I'll get to the table in a second. This rolls up as a prize around the back of my car. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read you a story. The story is called The Principal's New Clothes. Every so often, I'm going to stop. And when I do, you're going to tear off one of the colored sheets of paper because you've been very good and not peaked, thank you. And you're going to find quotes from the story. And you're going to cut them up, and you're going to sort them. So if it's something that Mr. Bundy said, you're going to put it under Mr. Bundy. If it's something that Alice said, you're going to put it under Alice. All right? So we're going to do that, but then we're also going to start predicting by cutting up quotes from another section later. So you're just going to need to listen very carefully so you know what you're doing. All right? So, the story is called The Principal's New Clothes. Mr. Bundy is the principal of PS 88. He is also the sharpest dresser in town. His students never miss a day of school. They like to see what he's wearing. Looking good, Mr. B, they always say. Mr. Bundy has so many clothes, he can go a whole month and not wear the same suit twice. Sometimes he changes at lunchtime just to show off. One day, a man and a woman who said they were tailors called on Mr. Bundy. Their card said, "Mo and Ivy, we make suits that suit you fine." They were not really tailors, they were tricksters. "Greetings, Mr. B," said Ivy. "How would you like to buy an amazing, one-of-a-kind suit?" "I have so many suits already," said Mr. Bundy. "Ah, but this is no ordinary suit," said Mo. "It has special powers." "What do you mean?" asked Mr. Bundy. Mo looked to his left. He looked to his right. Then he whispered in Mr. Bundy's ear, "We make our clothes from special cloth. It is invisible to anyone who is no good at his job or just plain stupid." "Really?" said Mr. Bundy. "Yes," said Ivy. "Not only will you look great, but you can find out if anyone in your school is no good at his job or stupid." "That is amazing," cried Mr. Bundy. "Now, if you just take off your jacket and lift up your arms, sir," said Ivy, grinning, "we will take your measurements. We will also take your money." So here's your first task as a team. If you tear off the blue sheet, you will find quotes from this section of the story. If you've got a couple pairs of scissors, you may want to just cut it in half so more than one person can cut at a time. And you and your partners will decide where these go. Remember, you covered all of these in the story. Okay? And once you have them all where they go, you can glue them down. Okay? And if you get a glue stick that has expired, just throw the garbage and grab it. Everybody stop and listen up for a second. Everybody stop and listen up for a second. So these are the quotes from the first part. But before we read the second part, I'm going to have you cut up the yellow quotes. And I'm going to have you think ahead. Where do you imagine those quotes might go? Don't be gluing those, because if you find out in the story that that is not so, you can just pick it up and move it. So once you've got the blue ones down, cut up the yellow ones and take some pictures. Remember, he's the principal, he's the vice principal. Okay? So remember your prediction. He's the principal and she's the principal. Okay, so here we go. Please try and restrain yourself from reorganizing everything while I'm reading. I promise I won't read far, and then you can move anything you need to. So the next day, Mo and Ivy set up a workshop in the gym. It was not long before the whole school heard about the amazing park and wanted to see it. The student asked to be excused to get a drink of water. They ran to the gym to peek. Teacher said they were going next door to borrow chalk, and they ran to the gym too. But no one could see a thing. By the end of the week, Mr. Bundy began to wonder what his new clothes looked like. He was also a little worried. What if he could not see the cloth? So he sent his vice principal, Ms. Moore, to have a look. Ms. Moore was smart and good at her job. She would have no trouble seeing the special cloth. Ms. Moore hurried to the gym. She knocked on the door. "Mr. Bundy sent me to see his new clothes," she yelled over the noise of the whirring machines. A moment later, the door opened a crack, and Ms. Moore slipped inside. "What do you think?" asked Mo. "Have you ever seen anything like it?" Poor Ms. Moore. She could not see a thing. Is it true that can it be that I am stupid or unfit for my job, she wondered. I've tried so hard to be a good vice principal. She took off her glasses, wiped them, and looked again. But it was no use. Ms. Moore had to think fast. If she told the truth, she might get fired. It's beautiful, she said. I'm going to tell Mr. Bundy right now how much I like his new clothes. Your suit is great, Ms. Moore told Mr. Bundy. I've never seen anything like it. Now I've got to run and make a phone call. Bye! She hurried off before Mr. Bundy could ask any questions. Now Mr. Bundy was more curious than ever. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at the ones that you and your team predicted correctly with the yellow ones. And I want you to take a highlighter, and if you can find a couple of words in that prediction that helped you make it correctly, I want you to highlight them, okay? So look and see, were there some words in there that helped you predict correctly? So, right, so that's what we're looking for. So we do go back and really think about what made that a good prediction. It's not wrong, you just don't know the story yet. Okay, so, you can glue the yellow ones down, but you can also tear off the pink sheet and make a set of predictions for the next part of the story. Okay? So here we go.
Bill probably said.
And we're just assuming this is this.
Or do we can just say Roger maybe said that?
Or does Mr. Bundy ask the student what he can't see it, right? He can't
Right,
see it.
and then he may act.
I want you to look at your pink predictions. And I want you to pick one or two that you're really confident about. We are really sure we've got this one the right place. And I want you to highlight the couple of words in that prediction that make you confident. Okay, so let's see how you do. Remember, Mr. Bundy was more curious than ever. He stopped Roger in the hall. Roger was one of the smartest students in the school. He couldn't see the suit. Nobody could. Say, Roger, said Mr. Bundy, do me a favor and find out how my new suit is coming along. Roger couldn't believe his ears. Wow, he said, I'll be the first one to see the principal's new clothes. Wait till the class hears about this. And he raced off to the gym. The door was still open, so Roger peeked inside. He could see no lining of the sewing machines hard at work, but he could not see the cloth. Oh no, Roger thought. If Mrs. Feeney finds out I can't see this cloth, she'll say I'm stupid. She'll fail me for sure. On the way back to his class, Roger poked his head into Mr. Bundy's office. Super suit, he said. What does it look like? Asked Mr. Bundy. I can't stop now, Mr. B. Mrs. Feeney is giving a test, and I wouldn't want to miss it. Now, at each point here, we can come back as a whole class. And say, tell me one your team predicted correctly. What did you highlight there? Tell us, so that the kids begin to hear what words or phrases were really the clues that make these good predictions. This is challenging work for kids, but because we let them cut it up, move it around, use a highlighter, use colors, all those things that happen in kids' interest and into their learning profile, we take this hard work and we make it more engaging. Okay? So, you can glue down the pink ones, but you see that you have a lavender sheet coming, and there are lots of quotes on there. So let's cut that one up and see where you think they should go. So once again, pick a couple of the purple ones that you're really confident about, and highlight for us the clues. What was it in that quote that make you really sure that that's where it's going to end up? Yes, so we start with highlighting after, but then you start wanting them to look for the things that, yeah. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Okay, everybody ready? Here we go. Let's see how we're doing. Okay. Mr. Bundy couldn't stand it any longer. I'll have to go see for myself. He marched down the hall and walked into the gym. Mr. Bundy looked at the empty machines. He blinked once. He blinked twice. He began to tremble. How can this be, he wondered. Am I really no good at my job? Is there anything wrong? Asked Ivy. Oh no, said Mr. Bundy. The suit is, well, it's fantastic. Bundy handed Mo and Ivy 2 gold stars to show how much he liked his new suit. "I'd like to wear the suit to the assembly tomorrow," he said, "but I guess it won't be ready." He turned to go. "Yes, it will," said Mo. "You will work on it all night and bring it to your house in the morning." That night, Mr. Bundy dreamed cold and drafty dreams.
That's funny.
I'm glad. Early the next morning, Mo and Ivy appeared holding their empty hangers in the air. Ivy waited in the other room while Mo helped Mr. Bundy put on his new clothes. "You must be very careful stepping into the pants," he said. "This cloth is very delicate." Ivy tried not to look at Mr. Bundy. "Aren't your new clothes light?" she said. "It's almost like having nothing on at all, isn't it?" Mr. Bundy stared at himself in the mirror. He prayed the rest of the world was smarter and fitter than he. "Are you coming to the assembly?" asked Mr. Bundy. "Thanks, but no thanks," said Ivy. "We have a bus to catch. Now, if you can pay us, we'll just run along." Mo handed Mr. Bundy the bill. Mr. Bundy handed Mo a great deal of money. Okay? So, we would then come back again as a whole class. Here's some that you predicted correctly. See if we can agree which words in those, this is fun for the kids to do, but it's the discussion that we have in between that really kind of drives their understanding here. So you can move these down. There aren't many quotes to go, so when you're ready, cut the white ones, and let's see what happens at the end. Mo and Ivy, take the money and go. Here we go. On the way to school, Mr. Bundy's neighbors all raved about the clothes they did not see. After all, they didn't want their friends to find out they were stupid or no good at their jobs. Mr. Bundy walked into the auditorium. As he walked down the aisle, he heard whispers all around him. Mr. Bundy thought he must be the only stupid person in town. Suddenly, a kindergarten child called out, "The principal's in his underwear!" That did it. Everyone burst out laughing. The truth had been told. Mr. Bundy and the teachers and the students knew they'd been tricked. No one had been willing to tell the truth because they were worried about what others would think of them. Mr. Bundy stood on the stage, red in the face, knees shaking from the chill, but not for long. The kids and the teachers wanted to help Mr. Bundy. They began passing up shirts and sweatpants, jackets and ties and hats. Soon, Mr. Bundy had a new suit. "Looking good, Mr. B," called Roger from the back row. Mr. Bundy called the kindergarten child up onto the stage. He shook her hand and gave her a gold star. "Thank you for telling the truth, Alice," he said. Everyone cheered. They knew Mr. Bundy was smart and good at his job, and they all agreed Mr. Bundy was the smartest dresser in town. And so then again, like after each thing, we come back to do this. Everybody see how this works, okay? So, I've actually used this sometimes when I'm in the classroom and I do a model lesson. I will use this because it's really very good for working with the kids on making predictions and identifying evidence, okay? We do a lot of that in the reading that we do, so this is the way to do that. It is not a hard sell with kids. They really get engaged in that. Saying to them, the biggest issue is arguing over who gets to cut and who gets to glue, all right? And so you need to build a little structure over whose turn is it to have the glue stick. Otherwise, we come on here. But this works really well. One of the high school teachers did this when they were reading The Crucible. Right? So this works at a really high level. So there are 3 acts in The Crucible. They read Act 1, and then she picked out the main characters, and they put the quotes in. And then they read Act 2, and they sorted more quotes. And this was a class where she described them as, we won't read plays and you can't pick us. All right? But they got pretty engaged in that because they probably didn't care any more about The Crucible than they did when she said they were going to read it. They wanted to see how well they did. So they began to pay attention to it just because they had something on the line, all right? At the end of it, she had them all write, choose a character, and write an essay describing that character. You're talking about this character traits, what do we know about him, and kind of the moral dilemmas they faced. And what she said to me was it's the best essay she got from the kids because they actually used quotes from the play in their essay because they had talked about them so much as they were doing this. So this can work for any fiction reading that you are doing if there's enough dialogue. And she didn't use every quote from the play. I used every quote from the book because there aren't that many. She used every quote from the play. You can also use this for some nonfiction reading. And I want you to think about this. So I have one that we do when we read about two former New Jersey governors, both of whom none of you remember. All right? So there's an old New York Times article about Tom Paine and Brendan Byrne. All right? And so there are many ways that the two gentlemen are similar, and there are ways that they are very different. So instead of having these columns, we simply had a sheet divided into 3 columns: Tom Paine, Brendan Byrne, and both. And I gave them a lot of facts from the article. We didn't read it. I just gave them facts from the article. And I had them sort them based on what you might already know, which really wasn't much. Where do you think they go? Which things might tell you about Tom Paine? Which things might tell you about Brendan Byrne? Which ones might tell you about both? No clue. Just put them where you think. And then they read. And whenever they found something that told them either one of the facts was in the right place or it belonged somewhere else, they stopped, they moved it, they glued it in. So they ended up with a graphic organizer that gave them essentially a summary of the article that they had read based on this. Now, that was not open-ended like this. This was much more fact-based. But you can do it with more than one kind of things. But it's all about making predictions, finding the evidence that supports those predictions. Okay? If you can get your hands on colored paper to do this, it makes it much easier because we're now tearing off the blue sheet, tearing off the black blue sheet, so that we don't have the wrong quotes floating around. All right? So tell me how you think this is an example of differentiated instruction. What is it about this? Think about back to the principles that we talked about, the things we talked about yesterday. What makes this differentiation?
So like add on more talented things each time. So you start very basic that everyone can pretty much do, and then you add more talented.
Yes. I probably got the kids using more heterogeneous groups here, so that as the challenge level rises, I hope I've got somebody who can generate that discussion. But I didn't ask the kids who struggle to make the higher level predictions first. I asked them to just take quotes they already knew. So I helped them build an understanding of the characters before they had to do more things. Anything else?
Including the different learning profiles like cutting.
There's something about scissors and glue sticks and colored paper and newsprint that taps into just about every kind of learner you have in your classroom. All right? Back to, we don't always have to do different things with every kid. We need to have enough different options in a lesson so that every kid finds something that has some appeal to them, that they think they can do. Okay? Anything else?
The color-coded, like you said, for terms of giving directions, it wasn't like, it was a lot for everything.
Right.
It was easier to different.
One of the hardest parts about differentiating instruction is giving directions everybody understands. And it defies my understanding because I think I'm perfectly clear. I use words of no more than one syllable. I model the heck out of it. You could not be more specific than I am, and there's still somebody who doesn't understand what I just said. And I don't know how that happens, except it happens routinely. And one of the things I've really had to work on over the years was getting directions that are more specific, where I model more. It's really nice to work with adults because you kind of just figure it out. But with the kids, it is really hard. I would probably make columns out of the newsprint and put the labels on the top before I put it out on the table. I would have all the supplies in different little bags, so you only have to pick up one bag of supplies. And, there are things you need to do. If you have a class that shouldn't have scissors, and I say that not jokingly, because I taught in school where everybody was classified as understood. Believe me, I left my scissors at home. You can cut things up and put them in an envelope, so they're out on the table before you start. that if you really know your class, you can make this work pretty much with any group of kids. But you're right, it's a whole organizational piece that is make or break here.
And chunking, you might chunk the story that you didn't really have, and then it was, you know.
Well, again, that kind of depends on your class. There are some groups of kids where I could read a lot before we even get started. There are other groups of kids where even these chunks are too big. So it's not about was this right or not, it's about back to knowing who you've got in the group and kind of tailoring it to them, okay? So what I've put on your table are 2 sets of questions. I wouldn't put these on the same sheet for the kids, I just decided to save them with paper. But everybody gets a list with questions, all right? And you would have to choose, I could decide 2 questions, 3 questions, you know, that you would do based on this story. So there are 2 levels here. So just look and see how they're alike and how they're different and how this particular lesson would help you answer some of these questions. Yeah, maybe you've got kids. We come back because we didn't talk about I just call it. So these would go on 2 separate sheets of paper, and I'm the teacher, I decide who gets what. All right? You can see that there's at least 1 question that's on the same in each. There are various kind of versions of the same question, some of them with a bit more challenge in there than others. Does that make sense to you in terms of what I've done here? Okay? Now, ask your question about the full fairness.
I asked, the question was, so I have a group of bullet kids and we're doing it together. I would give my kids most likely basic questions, and the mainstream kids would most likely get higher, although that's not always true. And then they notice that they have different questions. What is your response?
Right. Oh, the evil fairness issue raises its ugly head in the classroom. I will tell you what I'm comfortable saying to kids. Each of you needs to think yourself about what you're comfortable saying to kids, because kids are, please excuse me, great bullshit detectors. Right? If you say something to them that you don't really believe, they will pluck at you for eternity. So you have to have, the most important thing is you're comfortable with what you say. But here's what I say to kids. My job as your teacher is to give you what you need to be successful. That's my job. I went to teacher school to learn how to do that, and I'm practicing to get really good at it. If you think that what I ask you to do is either too challenging for you or not challenging enough, please notice I took the words easy and hard out of that. And sometimes when I'm not really paying attention, that vocabulary sneaks back in even after all these years. But I don't want to talk about hard and easy. I want to talk about if you think what I gave you was either too challenging for you or not challenging enough, you should come and tell me. Because it's my job to know what's right for you. Do not come and tell me about somebody else's work. That is not a discussion we will have in this classroom. I will not talk to somebody else about your work. I will talk to you about their work. And if you are relentless in that, some of them will really believe you, and some of them will just get tired and go away. But you have to be clear about what the belief system is. It is appropriate early on in the school year to talk to a class of kids and say exactly that. My job is to give you what you need to be successful. Please help me figure that out. And so if some kid comes to me and says, these are not challenging enough for me, because I'm not letting them say hard and easy. These are not challenging enough for me. I say, do 2 of them, and we'll talk about your answers. And if you've done a really good job, I'll let you try the other ones. You know, like I don't deny kids anything. But I often know better than they do what's the appropriate level of challenge. So it's an ongoing discussion, but it will appear at some point. And I think it's a discussion worth having with kids.
Does that kind of make sense to you? I will also say that sometimes it is appropriate to have that discussion with parents as well, okay? When somebody comes in and says, how come this kid got this and this kid got that? Same thing. I do not talk to you about somebody else's kid. That's off the table. We never, ever have that discussion. But if you have a question about the level of challenge that I'm providing your student, your child, please come. We will talk about that, okay? Maybe I have a rubric for some of these things, and I say if your child can start earning 3s consistently, then they will get them, like make it something that is obvious and available to them. But usually it's the parents of the high-end kids that complain because their kids aren't getting all A's because you ask them to do things that are more challenging. The kids who struggle, their parents are so happy you're giving them the right work that that's not usually such a big deal. But does that help you think about that a little bit?
I wonder what you would say. Typically in my classroom, I talk about different skills, different gifts and talents and learn different ways.
And I think we're a really good model for that with kids. There are things I'm really good at and things I'm not. Things that I like to do and things that, really not as comfortable. I make a mistake when I put something up on the board and I say, I made a mistake. And somebody else, like that we model that it's all right, that we all try things. But it's a process, okay? When I'm in districts where kids with special needs have been included across the board and teams have co-taught at multiple grade levels, by the time they get into higher grades, they're just kind of used to that sort of stuff and don't get the question as often. But it does. Anybody else want to weigh in on the fairness of what questions you have or what kids have said or, where you kind of have to have the discussion?
Well, what I had at the end of the year especially, I had a few kids that insisted on pushing out into the mainstream class with a pull-out teacher. And it was more of a social that they pushed out and because they did not want to be in this kind of group and looked like they were stupid. And that was frustrating because all you kids were talking about and trying to reinforce that they're not in a small group because they're stupid. They're in small, I said it in more political ways. Because we all learn different ways and blah, 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 and then bam, they were just gone.
As kids get older, the social component of that becomes more and more challenging for them. Back in the old days in the high school where there was more of our special ed rooms were kind of clustered in certain ways in the building, I had kids who were never in class on time because they couldn't leave their friends and turn the corner. We learn more about how to make this more discreet. But it honestly doesn't matter sometimes what we say, it matters what the kids perceive. And the fact that they perceive it incorrectly is just what it is. Like they have their own mindset about what this means. And I personally believe that the vast majority of our students, if we differentiate well and if we have co-teachers available in classrooms, should spend a good deal of time in general ed. There will always be some kids who need only what we can provide in that more contained setting. So, those decisions are not easy. I've had parents who didn't tell grandma that their kids were in special ed because they were embarrassed. This doesn't come to the kids just by themselves. There is this whole culture we live in that does that to them. But I think out in general ed classes, having that fairness discussion is really appropriate so that everybody, if they can't get on board, they at least stop saying it out loud because we've convinced them it's inappropriate. So, I want to share with you the website that belongs to my colleague and I. The website is ontheroadtoStudentSuccess.com. It's the website that goes with the book that we have written, and tomorrow some lucky individual will win a copy of the book. It's now in the second print, and I have a couple of copies of the first printing last week. But On the Road to Student Success is the website, okay? And there are 2 places on the website, and believe me when I tell you this, I know nothing. My colleague posts everything on here. I send her stuff and she puts it up. I am not
interject, and I decided I would go over on this. So, there is a place called New Resources. And pretty much every month, we have been posting something, all right? A lesson or a strategy. So for example, the sentence starters that we used the other day are posted on here, all right? Everything that's on here is designed to be things that you can download, change, fix, adapt to your class. This is a K-12 resource, so some things on here will work for you and some things won't, but you are invited to stop in every so often and see what's there. And at this point, we have about 2 years worth of things posted. So not only are, okay, so you can quote me on that, which is what we just did, is posted here, okay, with a couple of samples and I think the quotes and the lesson plan posted. So, some of the things we've done are posted here. There are some foldables from the snowy day. You saw some foldables yesterday. So we have not only archives, but we have other things, some examples of the perfect tens and all that. So that's it. Those are the new resources. The other thing we have are resources from our friends and colleagues. And I told you, I just steal everything I can get from really good teachers. And so when somebody tries something out, I do this in class, I say, ooh, wouldn't you like to share it? And so I'm hoping that we are going to be posting more, but you can see that there are any number of things, some of them with pictures that people have been gracious enough to send me, some of them with samples. So this is going to be on, even though I am retiring, we're not taking the website down. So we're going to continue to post stuff. So I would invite you to do two things. Stop in every so often and see if you've posted something that's of interest to you. Or send me something that you have tried in class with, the hard copy or a sample or a picture, whatever. And eventually, we will try and post some of these for other people to share. All right? So my email address is on the bottom of the certificates. So you have that. And then this is the web address for this. On the road to studentsuccess.com. All right? So, write that down. So, I want to do one more thing, and then we will think about making this a day. Why don't we just save this paper by flipping this newsprint over and writing on the back? All right? And you'll be fine because you can just write right over the pencil marks. I said we're going to write on the back of the book. You can
Ruined it.
Okay? So. If it's too complicated, try to do that. I have more paper. All right? So I just want you to divide it in half. And working on half of it will become your mind. And label it. Looks like, sounds like. So label it. 2 columns on the looks like, sounds like. So based on what we have done together over almost 2 days now, think about what a classroom where we're doing a lot of differentiated instruction looks like, and what a classroom where we're doing a lot of differentiated instruction sounds like. And this grows out of, I have a team of people come here, and towards the end of the year, we invited their administrators in. And so we did this with them as a way to talk about what they should look for when they came to our class. So, whatever you've got in your head, you're doing a lot of differentiation. What might it look like? What might it sound like? No wrong answers here, just get your ideas down. Go ahead. Okay, so let's talk about some of these as a way to kind of cement our own thinking about this. We're also as a way to be comfortable communicating this to people outside of our classrooms, right? So let's start with looks like. Somebody tell me, what's one of the things it looks like in a class where we're really serious about differentiating? Yeah, and
teacher is the facilitator?
Yeah, that you're not always standing here. Sometimes, particularly as the kids get a little older, when I get in classrooms, I can't always find the teacher, right? Because you're not always here. Sometimes you're here. But sometimes you're sitting in a seat over here. You know, sometimes you're over here with this group, so that it is not always immediately obvious. So it looks different when you are facilitating than when you are just front and center. Okay, somebody else? Yes.
You said student choice, that because that's like different activities like that.
Right, so we see a lot of examples of things that give kids options. And we see kids choosing things that they're going to do. Somebody else?
Fluid.
Fluid, meaning?
In a sense of movement and.
Sure.
Responsibility.
Yeah, there is often a lot of movement. We were talking about before, that sometimes when I walk into a classroom, I just see the busy, and I have to sit down for a minute to see the structure you've built underneath. You know, that you know it's there, but somebody else who's walked into your room doesn't necessarily know it's there unless they have a chance to stay for a couple of years.
It doesn't always look like exactly what it said.
It doesn't always look like I'm in control.
Yeah.
Low control.
People walk in.
Control chaos works for me, okay? Thank you for the control as the modifier for the chaos. But it's not always easy for people to see that, all right? Somebody else, what else would it look like?
We said happy, focused students, that they're enjoying working, like with the activity, just we all enjoyed it, it was fun.
Yeah, you know, it is not a bad thing when kids say fun and learn in the same sentence, right? I like it when learn is in a sentence too, but, so this very great, this lesson I do sometimes with high school teachers where we read about famous people and then we have various traits we sort for them. You know, so they cut up and move it around, big sheets of newspaper. These are high school kids, and you know, we can get them to do that. Some of them think it's babyish until they get started, and then they're very happy. But at the end of it, she asked them, because some of you are very brave as teachers, to write, what did they think about this lesson today? And most of the kids liked it. The only complaint many of them had was who they had to work with, because they're 15 and they have to complain about something, so they complained about who was on their team, all right? But one of the girls wrote this, and I thought it was just so interesting. Usually in this class, when I'm having a good time, I'm not learning anything. And when I'm learning something, I'm not having a good time. Today, I got both, which is exactly what you just said to me. You know, it is not a bad thing that fun is not the goal, fun is the tool. You know, fun is the engine that drives the train. But if kids can see that enjoying what they're doing and learning something can be connected, we win. Okay? Somebody else, what does it look like?
You said like small groups, trios,
Yeah, you see a lot of different configurations, both in terms of the kids and probably in terms of how the room is arranged. You know, the old days of straight ahead furniture, that works for some lessons, but it certainly doesn't work for all of them. So we may see things look different in terms of that. Anything else? Yeah, there are a lot of resources in a classroom, okay? And the hard part is getting them all organized, you know, like keeping them all, having them where you need them, and having the kids have access to them. But a lot more resources, books, manipulatives, hands-on things, art supplies, technology, you know, all of that in some configuration. Anything else that we kind of haven't talked about in terms of looks like? Okay, let's talk about sounds like. What does it sound like in a classroom where we're doing a lot of differentiation?
purposeful talk.
Thank you. Yeah, that, first of all, it's noisy, all right? There's a difference between noise when they've run amok and noise when they're all working. We need to get used to that. But it is having the conversations have a purpose. There's a reason for the chatter. It's about something, like the lesson we were just doing. The fact that they're all talking is fine because they're talking about what should we highlight, which words do we work here. You know, that's the point of it. Okay, what else does it sound like? Yes, hopefully. Ours and theirs both. Okay? What else does it sound like?
Yes.
Student chatter.
That we hear more student voices than we hear teacher voices at any given time, okay? Anything else that it sounds like?
Question?
Yes,
Questioning from the teacher, from the students, to each other.
absolutely. It is not just us. I mean, certainly there are times when we ask the questions, but there are times when students ask us the questions, or more importantly, they ask each other the questions. So it's a lot of that kind of dialogue among and between kids, okay? Anything else? Sounds like. So thank you for doing this, because I think it's important when people come to visit your classrooms that you tell them what to expect. When you walk into my room, you're going to see. You should expect to hear. This is our goal, and like people are more likely to see things in a positive fashion when you have told them what to expect and why to expect that. So just tuck some of these away as part of your conversation with people who are external to your class, right? So I'm going to tell you another story, because I like stories and I'm in charge. And then we're going to call it a morning, because again, we've gotten a lot done today. You guys are really good in terms of keeping things moving right along and getting a lot accomplished. So I'm going to tell you a story about assessment. Right? I am in a second grade class one day, towards the end of the school, so it's probably early May, right? And the teacher and I are doing a lesson together, introducing multiplication. Now, I have to tell you that I don't think I learned to multiply until I was 11. So I'm not quite sure why we're teaching 7-year-olds to multiply, but that's what we're doing, right? And so we had created a hands-on activity for the kids to help them understand that multiplying is like adding more times, right? So they had big sheets of newsprint with the outlines of houses on it and popsicle sticks. And so the teacher and I were originally creating the problems for us. So there are 3 houses, each house has 2 pets. 2 pets, 2 pets, 2 pets. How many pets do we have all together? And we wrote the addition sentence, and then we showed what it looked like if you multiply. Right? And so we did that. We created a lot of problems. There are 8 houses, each house has an X number of things. So we did that for a while. It seemed to be going just fine. Right? So we said to the kids, okay, now you're going to write your own problem. So these kids are 7. So giving them a big sheet of newsprint and markers makes them very happy. All right? So they were all teamed up, 2 or 3 on a team. They were going to write their own problem. Most of the teams wrote some version of this. There were 4 fish. Each fish ate 3 worms. How many worms did they eat all together? They drew the fish, they drew the worms, they counted them up, they wrote them up. 5. Okay? We go by this one team, and they've drawn these huge rectangles on their paper. So what are those? Those are parking lots. Really? Yes, there are 4 parking lots. There are 100 cars in each parking lot. 4 times 100 equals 400. Now, I don't know why they didn't say there were 1,000 cars in each parking lot, because the other thing I know about 7-year-olds is they like more zeros.
Yes.
Okay? There could have been 1 million cars in each parking lot. They'd have been very happy. So, okay, good, they do. Meanwhile, on the floor in the back of the room, probably the last pair that I got to, there are these 2 little boys who are just working away. And I could buy, they've drawn all over this newsprint. I said to them, so tell me what's going on here. And the one, because clearly there was one who was running this partnership, said to me, there are 5 rows of houses. There are 4 houses in each row. There are 11 windows in each house. Yeah, okay. And then he looked at me like I was supposed to do something. And one of the reasons I tell you this story is early on in my career, I would have pulled up a chair and I would have fixed this for them, because I thought that was my job. It has taken me the better part of a career to learn the value of minding my own business. So I said to them, I'll be back. And I left. And by the time I circled the room again, darn if these 2 kids hadn't written 220 on the bottom of their paper. And so I said, clearly, to the one who was running things, so how did you figure that out? Well, 4 times 5 is 20. Okay. And 10 times 20 is 200. But I've got this one left over. It must be 20 more. Now, if I had created a quiz for this class to judge how much they'd learned from this lesson on the introduction of multiplication, I would never have considered writing a problem that asked them to do two-step multiplication with an extra number there that was left over. It just would never have occurred to me. But because I said to them, show me what you know, I learned something about this particular young man in terms of his ability to think mathematically. All right? Sometimes we need to create the assessment. But sometimes we need to just say to kids, show me what you know. Because most days you're just going to get 4 fish each ate 3 worms, 12 worms altogether, and we're fine. But some days magic happens. And I can't tell you when that's going to happen. I can't tell you what kid is going to make that happen. But if you trust them enough to just let them show you, you will find out things about some kids that you would never have expected. So now this young man's teacher can't ever treat him the same way in math class because clearly he thinks mathematically at a very different level than most 7-year-olds. So I said to him, so would you like to share your problem with the class? Well, it's a darn good thing I wasn't standing in front of the whiteboard because he couldn't have gotten up there any faster. All right? So he puts it all up and he explains it to everybody in excruciating detail. And then one of the little girls in the class raises her hand and says, I can do that too. So now we have the opportunity not only for him to show what he knows, but for somebody else in the class who may in fact be able to think like that. It just hadn't occurred to her that she could go there to think like that too. That every assessment, particularly when we're differentiating instruction, does not need to be teacher-driven. It was driven by me because I said, show me what you know, but it doesn't have to be decided by me ahead of time. We need to trust kids to show us things that we might not have ever expected. Okay? So, I want you to take just a minute and think about your assessment practices. How do you assess kids in your classroom? Just think about it for a minute. And think about whether there are places where you could appropriately, because this is not all the time, but where you could appropriately just say to a kid, figure it out, show it to me, design a way for me to understand. You know, what kind of question could you ask kids that would get you to something that's more than you might expect? So just think about that for a minute. Talk to the folks before you go see. Okay, so, yes, does that kind of make sense to all of you in terms of one more challenge I have created for you here, which is to think a little more out of the box in terms of assessment. Okay, so tomorrow is day 3. I believe we're at day 3 already, right? Is there anything that you have heard about in terms of differentiated instruction that you have not seen, that we have not talked about, and going home tonight? You know, like if there's something that, you may ask me for something and I'm going to tell you I don't know that. All right? But anything you hoped we would talk about, hoped we would do that we just want to put out on the table so if I had it, I might bring it for you.
Do you have anything for literature circles? Reading like the different roles? I mean, I have a lot about that, but like, if you have anything to do.
I don't know. I'll look through the books that I have and see if I have anything else that would be a good resource for that. Okay? The answer is I don't know, but I'll take a peek. All right? Anything else?